Oh, we're live.
All right, we are live.
And I forgot to open up my scotch and get going. We were so busy.
Hey, everybody.
Howdy.
The Musty Wargamers are live for another episode. So we have...
As I'm sitting here trying to do my adulting. I'm as bad as the... ooh.
So
I should have...
We've got Rusty over from Hellcorrex tonight, and Palmer from Heresy Productions, myself, and we have a number of topics to talk about. So Rusty will be moderating the chat tonight. You're welcome to give your thoughts on the topics, and we will, at the end of each topic, kind of mention those, like your points. And so we appreciate that. You can also just come in and say hello. And so, yeah, hope everybody's having a good week. We are happy to be here in our sort of bi-monthly, I guess, right? Twice a month.
Yeah, it's our bi-monthly show.
Yeah. And so what we thought we'd do just to start out is just to show a little bit really quick, just like kind of what we've been painting and what we're up to. And then we'll go right into the topics. We have some cool ones tonight. Rusty, do you want to show what you're doing at the moment?
Well, if you watch my channel, you've been seeing some of this stuff, but in the last week, I've been doing a little bit of 15 mil stuff, as you can see here. Let's see. I got my M10 tank destroyer. It's American. Been working on those. And then I have my Jeeps, which if you watched my videos, I still have some Jeeps. And tonight, before the show, I was busy. And I put another one together.
Nice.
So that gives me number 7. And to go with that are 2 M20 armored cars for Americans. So I put those together, and as I was telling you just before we went live, ooh, I cut myself. Ouch. And I had my fingers all glued together. I was like, back out. So
first topic is X-Acto knife safety.
Don't be like me.
There we go.
Yeah, never trust a shop teacher that goes out and goes, all right, today's safety, we're going to talk about not cutting your fingers off like I have many times. Which is a good story because I actually had to deal with that when I used to teach. I had a shop teacher actually cut his thumb off. So yes. I was like, you might need this.
So you also were doing some stuff with orcs too, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm getting those out here. Individuals might see and know that there's all Gadskull here.
Yep.
I was a little busy today running around, so I was planning on using today to put my first layers of red on, but, you know, adulting and life gets in the way.
Yep. Awesome.
And also, I have this right here. This is going to be my new war boss. This is a Cromlech miniature. And I plan on using him for my war boss. So I got a little bit of work to do on it. So it's going to be my Mega Knobs. And then I have my Shermans. Not Shermans, but Stuarts. Yeah. These are M5 Stuarts. Second gen, those brown on them. And so here's one. Actually started working on all the details on this one right here. So that's all I've really gotten done with those.
You're getting more than me. I am going to just switch camera angles here because I believe on this show I can. And so, yeah, I will quickly just show. So same thing, like I've actually put videos up too, but I've actually been working on some Dark Age animals. My lighting here kind of washes some of this stuff out, but yeah, working on that. And also I just grabbed kind of one real quick of each. I've got some dogs. besides the one that I just heard bark upstairs.
On cue, bark.
That's right. It was like perfect timing. And then some sheep.
Goat sheep.
That's right. These are goat sheep. I just came off doing some beast men, and so I kind of see everything as a mutated version of everything. And then switching back, I have not sure if you guys can see, but I have like all of this stuff here, like all this terrain that I've been doing just for Savage Core. And so
where's your Guns N' Roses at?
Guns N' Roses.
Welcome to the jungle.
Oh, there you go. I was thinking Appetite for Destruction. Like, oh yeah, that's right. But one of the things that I really like were these. I don't think I showed these up close, but these are like stalagmites that I did out of plaster.
Oh, you actually made those.
I made these. Yeah, this is like the thing that I spent the most time on, was making stalagmites, because it's supposed to be like a cavernous world in Savage Core, like under the ground. And I felt like I needed to have, like, I can't even reach the large one because I've got one that's like this big. I can't even, I can't reach it. But I really wanted to have like some rocky, like stalagmites, just to sort of, have that sort of look to it. And so I was kind of happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had a big hill too, like rocky hill with trees on it and stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun to use that stuff. There may even be a battle report happening tomorrow. A battle. And so
is that
you heard it here on the Musty Wargamers.
Spoiler alert.
That's right. So, shall we get on to our topics, since we have 3 of them to potentially chat about tonight?
Yes. All
right. Well, this is one that we have some topics that are kind of interlinked. They're actually no virus is found on your PC. Thank you. They're essentially really related to each other. They kind of transition into each other a little bit. Just kind of turned out that way when we were talking about topics for this evening. The one that I was first thinking about is just, with all the games that people play that you're friends with, and at either your gaming club or your close friends, because there's so much choice and because so many people like to play multiple games, how do you justify what you invest in for a game? Like, how do you justify saying no to your friends? How do you just sort of pick which ones you're going to do? Because I would say, but I'm not going to answer first. I'll kind of let you answer first, Rusty, but I would just say the dilemma for me as part of the question is that I like to support my friends that take the time to game with me regularly. And so in doing that, I like to play games with them. I like to look for things that we're commonly interested in and accommodate that, but at the same time, not get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I'm getting into and not have to invest in a lot of stuff, like too much stuff. And so, over to you.
Hi, my name's Rusty, and I have a severe addiction to plastic and metal crack. So, yeah, I'm one of those individuals that I like to just play games. So when it comes to getting into games, I have a severe problem. It's like, I'll see something, it's like, oh, that is so cool. That's so cool. That's so cool. You know how that is. And you go out and you look at it, you buy the rule book, and then it's like, okay, I'll read the rules, watch some videos. And now with YouTube, it's like, you don't even have to really read the rule book sometimes, just to get an idea how things are working. And so, to be honest with you, I'll look at something, it's like, that is, it's like, I could really see myself playing that. So I'll order the rule book up. I'm looking at this game called Saga now. I don't know who plays it, but that's the part of the problem, is like, I'll start watching stuff and it's like, okay, I can see myself playing that. And then I'll get the rule book, and suddenly I'm like, all right, okay, I can see, okay, I find a faction I really like. And it's like, if you see a faction you like, obviously there has to be another faction to play against, because you can't play by yourself. All right.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to psych yourself out.
Yeah.
Unless you're have severe problems and you're on meds. And so you need another faction. So you just like, you make the first step and you buy a rule book, and then you go in there and you let's say I want to get into orcs. Well, gee, nobody else I know plays orcs, and nobody else plays this game called 40K or Malifaux, and so suddenly you find yourself, you have this faction you want to have, then you have this other faction, because obviously you need, and then you go to your friends. Like, hey, I got this great game. It's like, let's try it out. And then they go, what's the game? And I show up, it's like, Malefax? No, it's Malifaux. Well, it says Malefax. I'm like, no, it's Malifaux. This is a real story. And so they and this is pretty much like, there's, you have your really core friends that will always play with no matter what. You're always playing together. Then you have your concentric circles of friends. And I always find that the hardest ones to convince in my group are my core friends. All right. So you get in there and it's like, all right, let's just try this out. And they kind of look at it and they kind of flip through it. Not interested.
You're like, I wish I didn't just invest $125.
Exactly. The number of times that's happened to me is I can't count.
So what about the reverse?
The reverse? Oh, let's just just move on. Just kind of talk about this for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was this little game called Flames of War, second edition. I got into it, bought the rule books, and obviously I had Americans already and Germans, because I played Command Decision 15s, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I go into my core group, and it's like, all right, got this game, let's try it out. And they go, oh, it's World War II. It's like, oh, give it a try. They tried it, and we were playing, and they go, oh, I don't like this. Oh, really? Okay. It's like, I give it another shot. And it's like, no, I don't want to play it. Just don't like these rules. Don't want to see it again. Okay.
Oh gosh, you're a good person to ask about this.
And fast forward, let's go fast forward 10 years. And 10 years forward, I have a friend who goes, I got this great game I've been getting into. I really enjoy it. I like it. It's called Flames of War. Seriously? We played this game before. And he's like, no, we didn't. Yes, we did. And you didn't like it. Well, I like it now. So now that's why you're seeing me playing Flames of War, because I have a friend that's like wants to play it because he thinks it's cool.
So it sounds like, you haven't said it yet, but it sounds like you're more often the instigator in your group to try to get some different games in, and that you probably don't have much of a problem with too many people coming to you wanting to get you into games.
Correct. Okay. I'm an open type of person. It's like, I see something I like, and it's like, yeah, I've seen that. And that's what usually 80% of the time I'm trying to get them into other games. It's like, we play Dystopian Wars. Used to play it all the time. And I was the instigator, main instigator. And we played it, and I still love the game, and it's just, we don't play it enough.
Right.
And my core group, they happen to be the type of people that are not so open to change. Let's say, something new, and that's the hard part. Is how do you convince people that this is in their best interest to spend $100, $200, $300 on something that you think is enjoyable? And that's the hardest part, is doing the hard sell.
And then actually the money isn't even for some people the biggest issue. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just like another terrain table to build and another
Yeah.
army to paint, like, and I've got 3 armies that I'm in the queue already, like to paint, like for other things. And that's tough too, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times I look at some stuff is how can I make use of what I already have, and can I use my 15 mils or my terrain I use for 15 mil for World War II? Can I use it for something else? Like, what's this other game over here? Drop Zone Commander. That's another game. So
Yeah,
something that that meshes well together with each other.
right.
How say you?
Well, it's funny. Like, we're really different on this, and I'm for those that watch the topics that we kind of brought up and talk about in my Heresy Hump Days and stuff. I'm probably like on this mission in some ways. Like, some people probably see me on a mission to sort of simplify my gaming life as best as possible, and I have this thing called core games we talked about in order to and non-core games. Like, let's focus on the core games. And I've talked a lot about like trying to really find as much fun and enjoyment consolidated in my hobby, and I don't see it as in more games, more fun. Like, I actually see it as, and for me personally, like more investment in the games I really like, and having a few of them, like that's where I kind of see it in session. And I think we're a little different in our answer in the sense that I would say that I do my best to ward off like getting into new things. And the way I handle it is I have a few friends that I play mostly with, like you talked about, like your core group, and we'll mention games to each other as they come out. And then, we're either interested in them or not. Usually the person that brings it up is like the most interested in it. If it's something that I'm already interested in and it's almost a no-brainer, just like it's something I was waiting for it to come out, they kind of bring it up and stuff, then it's one that I may invest in right away with a friend. But more often than not, the way it seems to be going with multiple friends is that the person that shows the initial interest, if there isn't an automatic kind of acceptance, then they know that they have to kind of build 2 sides for it. And then if they're a good friend that I'll game with, I'll always usually say I'll play a game with them. Like, I'll try it out, and actually like devote that time, that gaming time, to the thing they want to do. They just have to do that initial investment. And then from there, I oftentimes, it's a bit of a toss up, but sometimes by playing it, it will actually suck me in, and then I'll actually get into it. But like the other day, I had 1 or 2 friends like talking about new games, and I just was like, in my off time, like not when I was talking to them, I just built this like list of all the games I have and like all the games that I'm willing to play right now, even among what I have, because I have games that I'm not up on the rules, like miniatures for them, that I'm not up on the rules. I don't have like the current edition of the rules, or I've just kind of put it aside. And even though I have the miniatures, I wouldn't really say I'm prepared to play the game. And so I kind of done that as almost like a barrier. Like, it's sort of like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like right now, like I want to spend my time. And even though I might say like core games, and I maybe have like between 2 and 4 core games, I probably have like 13 that I could play like in my collection, right now. And I almost don't want to play anything else right now. Like, I almost feel like I enjoy playing these other ones so much and I don't play them enough, so that's kind of the mentality, like for my answer. And having said that, I'm like a hypocrite too, because every time I talk about it, I made this list and then I'm like, oh yeah, like, what is it? Adeptus Titanicus is coming out at the end of the year. I'm not going to say no to that. Like, I'm definitely gonna get that. If I have a friend that I play Lord of the Rings with, and I kind of mentioned, like, because I like the game, and I've played some games of Lord of the Rings lately, and I said, like, if there's a new box set and I like it coming out this year, because there's rumors that they're kind of rebooting it a bit, and if they release a new like starter set or box set, I might jump into that too. And so, yeah. Is there anything on the comments? Is there anybody?
I haven't seen any comments.
Okay. Just curious.
Me.
Okay. So what do you have to say about it in response to that? Before we go on to our next one, I'll give you last comment.
Well, that's pretty much the way I am too. Is that you have your core games that you always want to play, and you're sitting down there, and it's like, well, what do you want to play next week? And you're going through your head, it's like I want to play this one, or maybe this one, or maybe this one. I was like, oh, let's play this one, and they all go, oh yeah, let's play that one. And you're like, okay, we can play that one. Fine, yeah. But it's like it was really up to me. And sometimes it's like I really like right now I want to get, I'm painting 40K stuff again, and it's like you get the itch for play some 40K. It's not my go-to game, but it's something that you like to get other people involved, and that's something that we all have in common. Is we all have some type of army, or we have enough armies that if somebody new showed up, we can just say, hey, here you go.
There's a lot of investment in it.
Yeah, just speaking of that, there's a new box set coming out. A little bit of
which one?
It's Forge something. It's got Mechanicus and Necrons in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I would love to see new Mechanicus models. I love those.
Well, the newest thing is I've seen it. This is kind of a derivation of going away, but it falls right into it. Is that they have Scout Knights.
I've seen those.
So those are you got the Knights, but now you got smaller ones, so they're even smaller.
You know what? It's funny because on those, I love the Knights, and I would say that as much as I sometimes really dislike when they keep expanding out, like, the types of units and they're very close to each other and stuff. Like I wasn't one of the ones that liked the not dreadnoughts, but like what were the Space Marines inside the suits again? The
Centurions.
Centurions, yeah. I was not like on the side of the Centurions when they came out. I know it wasn't crazy about that. But like I don't see this as the same, to be honest. I think the Knights look so cool. That little Knights, that's awesome too. I actually think it's so cool.
So I was just messaging back and forth with one of my friends, and it's like he's like, would you be interested in getting that box? It's like, would you be interested in any of the Mechanicus stuff? And I was like, I don't need any other than those Scout Knights. I don't need any more Mechanicus stuff. I have plenty.
Yeah.
But I can see myself playing Necrons or getting into Necrons because I watch Nick Beer's channel all the time, just because that's if I'm going to start a new army, it would be Necrons.
Mm-hmm.
But
cool. Well, before we switch on to the next topic, is there still no comments on there? Otherwise, we'll go on.
No comments.
All right.
If you want to comment, please just
showing that we have one viewer right now. So the other sort of continuation of this, and you started to go into this, but I think we can spin it a little bit too, because you didn't go over it completely. So we talked about things that like you getting pressured or you pressuring, in your case, your friends to get into games, and how to respond to that and how do you deal with that. So what about overall how hard it is to get games into the club to be successful, or to get them to actually become popular or catch on? Are there certain kinds of games in the club that you go to that are easier, some that are harder, and what do you attribute like the main reasons why certain games are successful in your local club or local circle of friends either? How do you what do you think about that, Rusty?
Just some of the games that you go back to when a good example is when Games Workshop dumped Fantasy Battles, and it's like, all right, they excommunicated it. There's no more fantasy. And Games Workshop, they went to with the Age of Sigmar, which I just call it just 40K light. But we tried getting into Kings of War. And it's like, all right, we have all the armies. Everybody that in our group, there was like 8 of us that would play fantasy battles at the shop. And we was like, all right, we could still play this, but let's just try something different. We have this Kings of War, and we tried playing Kings of War. And it was, so obviously you have a group of individuals that wanted to play something different because they knew that Games Workshop was no longer supporting their fantasy system. And we played it for a while, and it was just like, and it just came to a kind of a consensus. Is like, fine. We're just not, not feeling it. And what it would take was that somebody would have to continue pushing the issue of let's just continue to play until it really grows on you and you really like it.
Mm-hmm.
And no one wanted to step up and be that person.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like a lack of a point person and a point person, like a champion for it kind of thing.
Yeah. You have to have, it's like when back in the day in the 90s, when we were playing Battletech, and always seems to go back to that. Battletech in our area used to be huge. And I was kind of like the guy that's like, he's the Battletech guy that always pushes the games to play the Battletech, and we go to conventions, local conventions. There was always, I would be hosting Battletech games, and then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm always doing all the work for this. I'm going to pass the baton and see who picks it up. And as soon as the baton was passed, it was dropped, and it just, and a lot of times I see that with, like we had Malifaux. We used to play Malifaux a lot when it first came around the area. And then the person that was kind of the driving force where they moved, and then you hardly see it now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a lot of it is you have to have an energetic individual that's willing to take their time out of their own life and always be there, let's say at the game shop, every Saturday or every Sunday, 3 or 4 weekends out of the month, and being there to make sure things happen. And we used to have that, a couple of individuals that were always pushing our War Machine nights. That was our Wednesday nights. And it's like, I don't feel it anymore. Let somebody else do it. And we went from having like 20 to 30 people playing on a Wednesday night for War Machine, and now you're lucky if you have 6 to 8 people there.
Mm.
That just shows what happens when a couple individuals are no longer around. And that's what it takes, is an individual that's willing to sacrifice a lot of time to make it happen.
So when you have somebody that's, so let's say it's either you or somebody else where that is in place, what's in your opinion the next 1 or 2 things that then is like the challenge? Because like sometimes it's even challenging when you have a champion, right? Or somebody that's like really got a lot of initiative.
I guess the one thing I'd have to say is train somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make everybody reliant on you to always be the champion. Make somebody else that takes up a lot of that slack for you. Make him a co-partner. And that's what some of the success that we used to have with, like I said, our War Machine was like we had like 2 people that were always doing things. If one wasn't there, the other one's there to answer questions, that because they knew the rules inside and out. They would always go to the tournaments and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when both left, it's like, bam. It was like somebody pulled the rug out from the system. But
right.
And so you have to have a core group of individuals, and I think we have to diversify a little bit more instead of relying on 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe the secret of it all.
Right. Well, I have a different answer.
All right.
But I actually completely agree with what you're saying. Like, I think you absolutely have to have, as you described, like the energy, like the support for it, and people that are like into it. because that's a bit infectious, and there's also some work that has to be done. There's always people that kind of accept some of the work of like arranging stuff, and and then even like you said, like teaching and kind of mentoring. Like I hate to get all like mumbo jumbo mentoring, but like like just sort of helping people that are new, like coming in and stuff.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought about it, and I'm a supporter of my local gaming store. But I wouldn't say that I maintain like the biggest presence there compared to many other people in the community of gamers. Like I have a group of friends that we're sort of basement dwellers. Like we go to each other's houses and play games. And I have been to my local store recently and played a game, but I buy stuff there and I go there, but I don't like put myself out there as that individual that like has finger on the pulse, like, and is like running stuff at the local store. And so when I answer this from that perspective, I'm not that guy. But two things that I guess, or I think important in getting games going at the local store and within the local group are kind of basic in the sense that like if the company doesn't have really good distribution, if like you have to tend to order it direct, and if you can't even get it kind of at the store, like, or if they have to wait like much longer than you would have to typically do it through their distributor as a special order or something, like, because I've seen this happen where like, you place orders locally for something that's not just on their distribution list with their main supplier, and it can take a really long time to get it. And if you're in that scenario, like, so those games, like how, kind of fall out. And I play a lot of those games, actually. I play a lot of games that are not like the most popular game, and then right off the bat, and then to get them going, it's really tough if the company doesn't have that kind of distribution and that presence within local gaming stores, like to be able to get them. And so I actually think that's a big piece in getting games going, is like right off the bat, how accessible is it for everybody? If they have to, I have seen certain situations where I don't know how many people play Musket Tomahawks in Calgary, but I'd have to say, I can easily say that I know over time, either people that I've played the game with or people that I know that have the rules, and that like, we were potentially getting together as a group and things, that I know of at least 15 people. May not sound like a lot, but for a game that, and these are just the ones that I know, for a game that what isn't readily available, there was never 15 copies on a shelf anywhere in the city. Like many people scattered all over the place on the net and occasionally in local stores to get 1 or 2 copies, but it was not easy. And so we still were able to get it together. And I was, for some people, not everyone, like a little bit of a point person at times, did some demos at my local gaming store. And so like your argument or your point, I think applies here. Like I tried to fill that niche. But the distribution piece was hard. I mean, every time I did a demo or anytime I did anything, that one of the first things people ask me is, "Oh, is it upstairs in the history section? Like, can I get this here?" No. You can go to like online and like go like to this site, and like perhaps this site you might be able to find it on eBay. Like, like this is like, those are like my answers. And so it's like, oh, you're promoting a game that I just can't really get right now. Like everybody, if they wanted it bad enough, could get it, but it was never like immediately easy, and then the other thing that I would say, and this is just an observation, is that for games to be popular and seem to kind of take off, besides the fact being part of a genre that a lot of people like Star Wars, because like X-Wing and Armada both are actually fairly popular in the store. Besides being a genre that's really popular, like really helps like for a game to become successful, I think. Also, if it's conducive to being competitive, where you can do tournaments, then there's a tendency for it to pick up in this store, like that I'm talking about, like the gaming store. And so like things like X-Wing, we've moved away from card games a bit at this particular store, but like Magic with, and all those kinds of games were really quite popular. And I think that you could be competitive pretty easily. I think with those, I've never played them. And then, like 40K and like some of that those games, you know, are actually quite popular, and there are a lot of tournaments and things like for that. But that's what it kind of seemed to be like, is if it could be competitive, then the store, you know, would support like tournaments for it, and like people would be interested in it, and that would be really conducive for it to being successful, I think.
Yeah, you bring up some good points there. Is when you have these little small niche games, when a store is fighting for shelf space, the largest squeaky wheel is always the one that gets the most attention. And it's like you walk into my store now, one wall is War Machine, then a set of shelves is 40K and Age of Sigmar now. It used to be 75% of our miniature area was 40K. Now it's down to 25%. And the other 50% is War Machine Hordes. But then we have the small niches, the Armada, X-Wing, and what's that? Star Trek.
TAC Wing. The TAC Wing. It's like similar to X-Wing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a Star Trek guy, so it's I don't understand it. And we got a small section of BattleTech, and then we have a small area that is like a one rule book for this game or one rule book for that game. Just a one. There's not two of them. There's just one, just to let somebody know that there's that system out there, and that this little bitty area is geared towards the small niche games, like a lot of the stuff you put up on your channel. And Saga, they just put up the old.
They just put up the old rule set. Look
the
what
old
we've got
rule
now.
It just went up on the show, and they just coming out with a new edition. I was like,
Did you tell the store owner? Did you tell them? Oh gosh.
Probably was the distributor was just unloading the stuff cheap. They go, oh, look at this. They're getting this as cheap. Let's just grab a couple copies and put it. I was like, sorry, they're changing.
Yeah.
What's that? Frostgrave?
Yep.
I've seen Frost. I don't know much about it. I just seen that there's a Frostgrave rule book or something was up on the wall now.
No, that is a popular game in a lot of areas.
And they finally, here in the last couple of months, they put up some Flames of War stuff. That's probably why my friends got into Flames of War, because it's up on the shelf now.
Okay.
And he sees it. It's like, so that's why we're playing Flames of War now, because it's like, well, you know, you're only 2 editions late.
Oh gosh. No, that's funny. I mean, I don't actually, not to go on a tangent, but I don't oftentimes I don't really select content for my YouTube channel and games that I play based on popularity and like what's going to draw people. Because if you look at the stuff that I do, I mean, I just do what I think is fun. And like Savage Court comes to mind. Like I kind of shouted that out before the rules were available, and was like kind of really into the setting and the idea of doing that. And that's a growing, you know, kind of thing. And it's great. But it's not like and things like Musket Tomahawks and even Saga. Like Saga probably be more popular than Musket and Tomahawks and some of the other stuff that I play. But even that, when you compare it to some of the big guys like X-Wing and 40K and some of the other stuff out there, even War Machine and Hordes and all that stuff, I think there's bigger, more established followings and people seeking YouTube content for that stuff.
Yeah, it's really easy to you know, you look like the Star Wars and the Star Trek stuff that sells itself.
Yeah.
You know, you walk in, it's like, oh, Star Trek, Star Wars stuff. I'm walking over there and immediately got to look at it. What's this? And when I was at Gen Con when they first came out with the X-Wing stuff, and it was like people were just clamoring and just going hand over fist trying to fight their way to get the stuff. And I just like, okay, check. I'll look on eBay or whatever, or wait for my shop to get it. I don't have to rush out immediately and get the newest stuff, but to see if there was any interest. And the moment I said to, I've mentioned it to my friends, and I picked up the box set. Obviously you could pick it up at any like Target or anything like that, and it was an easy sell.
Yeah,
and that's when something. It's like, you want to play X-Wing? And they go, yes. And then they turn around, you want to play Star Trek? Because they're Star Trek. Like, two of my friends are Star Trek fans. I'm the Star Wars guy. And they go, it was easy for me to sell them to get to play Star Wars. And then it was like, well, we want to play Star Trek. Okay. You buy this stuff, I'll play.
I was a late adopter on X-Wing. I probably waited at least 2 years before I bought into it, but I was really happy that I did. I mean, but it recognizably, I mean, it is to a big part of that is the actual genre. Like, I love flying TIE fighters. I just absolutely love. I mean, I still fly swarms. I love flying swarms of TIE fighters, and I play casual for fun, but I just love that stuff. And a big part of it is the genre. So for sure.
And that's the easiest part about selling stuff, is it's getting into a genre that sells itself. And the hardest sell, though, like you said, is that you play a lot of niche games, and you have to find individuals that are like-minded and want to get into playing a niche game. And if your friends don't want to get into a niche game with you, then you're sitting with stuff that you spent money on, and you're wondering how long it's going to be before they actually come around and actually think about that it ferment enough in their head that they want to change their mind and actually want to play with you and give it a second or third shot. Or they say, no, not interested at all. Then what do you do?
Well, before we get into selling, why don't we see if anybody in the comments, we've had a couple of viewers now coming in and out, but let's just make sure that nobody's kind of gave their thoughts on this topic about the difficulty of getting games to be popular in your store.
Well, no chat.
Okay, no worries. And for anybody watching so far, you can always give your impression on that. And so interested in your thoughts and in the stores that you potentially occupy. So, yeah, feel free to comment on that one, but we're going to move on to the next topic. And so, yeah, like this is going to lead into the last one, which came up at a different point. Like we were thinking about this in one of our other Musty Wargamer episodes. We started talking about this idea of when is enough, and like when do you decide to sell your stuff? Do you ever decide to sell your stuff? Like, what about you, Rusty? Do you ever get to a point where you sell the stuff you have?
Yeah, I have. Like I said, at one time I used to be a big board gamer, and I had a couple hundred board games, and it just gets to the point and you go, and no one plays board. It's like now there's a board game club going on in our game shop after I got rid of all my board games except for a handful. But so I decided just to decide, all right, I have no interest. No one's got any interest. They're just collecting dust. I'm going to convert them into something else. And if you ever seen a lot of my collection of like 40K stuff, some of that used to be board games.
Okay.
And some of it, I traded away or just sold on eBay, or you'd be surprised some of the stuff went for some good money.
Yeah.
But, I also had a lot of Napoleonic stuff and Civil War miniatures, and I turned around and sold almost everything on eBay. And I do have a very large, it's not down here, it's upstairs. I got a very large telescope for my one of my other hobbies.
There you go.
If you want to get into an expensive hobby and you think miniature gaming hobby, get into astronomy.
Well, I could saltwater aquariums. I'm not sure if you know that about me, but yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah, you could blow a lot of dough on a saltwater reef tank or multiples, unfortunately. So yeah, I hear you. Like when we talk about the expenses, like there are a lot of hobbies out there that are expensive for sure.
Yeah, when you can drop, Forge World. Everybody complains about Forge World being expensive. Yeah, you haven't dropped $300-500 on just an eyepiece.
Right. Can't imagine. Well,
so yeah, that's something I did was I just started selling off my miniatures. I got rid of most of my 15 mils, and just converted into other sets of hobbies. I just kept the money kind of in my hobbies, but I just I'm playing this game, move it over into this game, that type of thing. So, and now I'm looking, I got a nice little stack over here of stuff I'm planning on getting rid of. Malifaux, Drop Zone Commander. I got some Kings of War stuff, actual Kings of War miniatures I'm planning on getting rid of.
And so is this all stuff you've painted?
Some's painted, yeah. Other stuff I just one of those things where you have one, let's say you got a crew, like you painted up some of your Malifaux stuff. You have a painted Malifaux crew, or then you have stuff, your other crews that you were interested in, you bought them, and it's like I have some relic hunters and stuff like that are still in the shrink wrap. They haven't even been opened yet. So, and that was where you have interest in getting into stuff or getting friends interested, then they turn around and change their mind. And like right here, I have a Drop Zone Commander box still in the shrink wrap. It's the Scourge.
Okay.
So I have a lot of stuff like that that's just, you go hog wild at one time and you buy a bunch of stuff just thinking that you're going to get into it, and then it just doesn't take off.
So is there any difference in selling it when it's like shrink wrapped and unpainted versus when you've painted it up? Like, do you feel any difference in selling it for that reason?
It sells something if it's still in the shrink wrap, because you put it for about the same price. Let's say you put it on eBay, and someone will see it. It's like, all right, it's selling for $29.95, brand new. Well, what you have is brand new. It's still in the shrink wrap, so you could sell it for the same price. I don't have any problem with that. But I just sold off a Guild Ball team. I had my Brewers team. I had a Brewers team. I had a Fisherman team. I had like 4 different teams. And that was pretty popular for a while, and that kind of dropped off. And there's a handful of people that maybe 4 people still play it, but it's kind of like died. And I just sold this week my my last team I had for a nice chunk of change. And it was fully painted.
And that doesn't bother you?
Well, as an individual, I do commission work every once in a while for people. So it's kind of like when you're painting something, when you're doing it, it feels kind of like your own baby that you're painting. And it's like, oh, I put so much effort into you. Goodbye. Go right back. But and that's it's kind of how I feel about some of it. But it's like, it's going to a better cause. It's going to get used.
That's true. That is true. I'll give my 2 cents on it. It's funny. I got back into the hobby in like 2011, so most of my timeline of my acquisitions of what I have in the room now are from 2011 onwards, and so not nearly as long as yourself, but I've sold very little. I've gotten rid of very little, and I get really attached to the stuff that I paint, because it's like my painting projects. Now I don't do commission work, and so I think if I did commission work right off the bat there, I would have a different mindset, because I'd already be painting with the intention of giving it away. But everything I've done, I've put on my table, I've kind of invested in for my own and put my own sort of creative process into. So even if I don't use it now, it may even be like a reflection of a stage of painting that I was in at one point. And it kind of means something to me, and I just have this aversion to like getting rid of stuff. Now, where I have gotten rid of stuff, Drop Zone Commander, I got rid of, and I didn't give it a fair shake. Like I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into the scale at the time. I got into it. I thought I'd be interested. Sounds like a great game. I have nothing against it, but I couldn't get into the scale. I went into the game with a friend. We bought 2 starter boxes and split up the halves, double our sizes, and then I kind of got out of it, and I felt bad about that. And so it was really funny because I ended up trading it for a group of Saga Normans, like somebody that just didn't want their Normans and they wanted the Drop Zone stuff. And I was like, hey, like, all right, I'll take your Normans because I love Saga. Ship them over to me. I said, I'll paint those in a year or two, like whenever I want to, but they're better for me because I like Saga. I'm not getting into the Drop Zone. And so we just didn't even exchange. Now, by doing that, I didn't feel like I took a loss on the financial perspective because we kind of made like a fair trade in my mind. Yeah. And then, so there was no loss to me in my mind. But then the guy that it was funny, the guy that is a gaming buddy of mine that I was going to get into the Drop Zone with wanted to play Saga. So I gave him the Normans because I felt bad. And I felt bad and I wanted him to be able to play. So it was kind of a combo. I felt bad. I've always, like, if I do something where I'm going to get into something, I don't like to have that reputation where I'm going to like jointly get into something and then I quit on you. And that's the only time I think I've ever done it to my knowledge. And so there was a big gap of time where we said we were going to get into it and we had some things come up and we weren't able to. So in all fairness, that was the only thing that also contributed to it. But then, you know, I got payback because, like, I don't know if you saw that video with the Zotes that I did, like all the GW Zotes. Well, all those he gave to me as sort of like payment for the Saga stuff. And so it all kind of worked out in the end. I didn't feel like I took a loss, and at the time I didn't really care whether, you know, I just gave them to him. You know, it didn't bother me either way. But I'm trying to think. I don't think I've sold anything besides that since I've been doing this, and I do wonder at times. You know, I'm more likely to give something away than I am to sell it. That's probably going to have to change. I think it's probably because I've just been doing this since like 2011. I've gathered a lot of stuff, and eventually I probably will have to sell or somehow get rid of stuff that I decide not to pursue at a certain point, you know?
Yeah, that's where I have probably 10 times as many rule books of games than I have of the miniatures left. Mm-hmm. And since, well, eBay came around since like 98, somewhere in there, like 97, 98. And way back in the day when it first came on, it was like, oh, you can sell stuff and you can buy stuff. I thought it was great because I had a whole bunch of, you know, other games that I, you know, would played over the years and had miniatures, and it was like, just could never get rid of this stuff. Mm-hmm. No one was interested in your local area. And I just started selling stuff off. And I got to the point now where I have no problem. It just doesn't bother me anymore. Where, in a way, is that you have to get into the mentality. If someone wants it, they buy it from you off of eBay. That means it's going to a better place where it's going to get used. Now, when you have something sitting in a box for 20 years, when you get to that point, you're going to realize is that it's just not. If you haven't used it by now, it's just taking up space.
Yeah, and then the other piece too, like I totally agree with you in the sense that it's sort of the hoarder mentality, right? Like this isn't different than the hoarder mentality. I mean, honestly, it's the same thing. I mean, there are people when you buy something, they're like, you know how much I paid for that? You know how much that's worth? Like, there's no way you can get rid of that and throw it away. I mean, that's hoarder mentality. There's the hoarder mentality, and then there's this idea as a hobbyist where you justify what you spend on your hobby and you justify your decisions. And if you find, maybe with my mentality, if I find that there's a lot of stuff that I'm buying that I'm not using, then I'm proving to myself that I'm not making good decisions. But by holding on to it,
you made a good decision.
I still have made a good decision because I could still do something with that, right?
Well, I paid $100 for this box from GW this year. In 2 years, it's only going to cost me $50 a year. And in 4, it's only $25 a year. That's how you start justifying things in your head, and you realize 10 years down the road, and that they're still sitting in that same box. Are they doing me any good?
Well, another problem is you've been buying a box every year while you've been doing that math too, right?
And a good example is, like I just said earlier, they have that new GW's coming out with that new box set coming out, and I looked at that and I go, if I know how I am. If I buy that box, there's going to be Necrons, and I'm going to be looking over there, and it's like, I'm going to have a big giant Necron army just to fill out this little bit of Necrons I have from that box set. So I'm going to be the type of person who's like, as soon as those Scout Knights come out in a separate box, I'll probably buy them in a separate box, but I'm not going to probably go near that box set, because I know if I buy it, I'm going to have a bunch of Necrons. I know how I am. And I don't need another army.
Do you ever find that it's really gratifying, though, when you do have something that you hold on for a bit and you know you got to do it, but you kind of maybe put some other things ahead of it that you got after, but then you do eventually put on the table and you get it done?
Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of doing now. It's like when you had your Oktoberfest, I got all those orcs out and I started painting them. It was actually, I felt really good. I had some of those. Those are from 92, somewhere in there, 92, 93. And that was 2017. So that was 24 years, something like that. How some of them, they've just sat in a box for 24 years. And I finally painted them.
Well, for me, it's the Saga stuff, because I took a big break after the spring last year of Saga. Like, I might have played a game, but I was fully intending always to play Saga. Like, I liked it, but I moved on to other games. Like, that's kind of what my friends and I do. We just shuffle stuff and play stuff for a few months or whatever. But I actually got the animals, I guess it was actually last February, March, and I'm doing them now. And I'm going to do the civilians shortly afterwards, like the civilian pack. And then my Scottish warband, I bought used off a friend. So a friend of mine that I played Saga with, he had another friend that was going to join and play Saga, decided not to, and then they were stuck with this entire warband. And it's actually more than the 4-point box I showed on my one of my recent videos. It's actually got other units in there. It's closer to 6 points. And so I was like, well, I love Saga. You're wanting to get rid of this. And, it was a good deal. I mean, like, typically, whether it be through friends or other groups locally, if we get rid of something, it's usually not at retail. I mean, like, when I get rid of something when I buy something, because I told you I don't get rid of things, but when I buy stuff we have a thing called Black Market. It's sort of like a gaming thing, like a used gaming thing. And when I buy stuff, I don't expect to pay retail, on that. Like, that's why you're there. And so, like, he gave me a good deal, and I was like, I'm a brand new Scots army, like, for Saga, which I love. I'm like, yeah, I don't care if that sits on the shelf for 2 years. I'll do a deal with you on it. And now I'm going to do it. And I'm really looking forward to it. Apparently the Scots, I've been looking at the Facebook group, and I haven't even looked at the battle boards for my armies yet. But the Scots are apparently pretty tough group. People are finding them pretty good in the new edition. And so I just like the idea that there were Scots and that it was a good deal and everything. So
yeah, that's where you just have to start justifying the non-hoarder mentality. And like I said, when we started the show off, and it's like, hi, my name's Rusty, and I'm addicted. Yeah, it's like you realize that you do have a problem, and you have to, it's like, try not to relapse. And right now, I'm kind of relapsing right now when it comes to 15 mil stuff. I've been buying a couple extra of these just today. What came in the mail today is this stuff right here.
Nice.
So I got some late war British infantry, and like I need more American stuff, but heavy weapons. I picked these up. It was like $36 for both boxes together. Somebody had a good sale going on, and so I picked those up. And the whole mentality, it's like, but I've been doing pretty good as you notice. I've been painting a lot of stuff. If I buy a box, I usually paint what's in the box pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, we have actually filled this hour quite handily. Was there any other comments or no?
Well, let me check.
I say other. I don't think we've had any yet, but are there any comments?
I haven't seen any comments come in
All right.
at all.
Well, for those of you watching now or later, you're welcome to join the discussion. One thing we'll mention is we're not regularly going to have vendors or anything like that on the channel, but we do welcome viewers, subscribers that want to come on the show just to join a discussion just as a guest. You're interested in that, private message Rusty at Hellcorrex or myself at Heresy Productions, and we will set that up for a future episode at one point. Beyond that, I am curious. I know some videos and podcasts will do the whole, like, as long as you can drink a cup of coffee thing, length of time. But for us here, we tend to drink scotch. And I don't know where, I have not seen Rusty drink it once. I know that you were drinking scotch. I can't see it there. Oh my gosh. Well, I got, this is like,
I got a little bit left.
The show is how long, you can have your drink, your gentleman drink there. And you've been doing a lot of talking. So you're going to have to catch up now. All right.
We always like to talk about what we're up to. And at the beginning of the show, I opened up this bottle. And this is a bottle of Glenlivet Founder's Reserve. It's a no age statement. It isn't too bad. It has a little bit, it's kind of a slight hint of smoke in it. And when I was tasting it, you can smell like maybe a little bit of sherry.
Kind of a musty smell?
Yeah, almost a musty sherry cask.
There you go. Well, thank you for everybody for joining us. And please stay tuned in 2 weeks over at Hellcorrex for the next Musty Wargamers. Cheers, everybody.
Night, Elle.